Perspectives, Finding Common Ground, a podcast series that brings together a panel of thought leader perspectives as a forum to socialize and problem solve education technology issues with the goal to ultimately find common ground.
Hello, I'm Patrick Devaney, and I'd like to welcome you today to this episode of Perspectives, Finding Common Ground. We're joining you today from Miami, where we are attending the CoSN annual conference. The theme of the conference this year is leading innovation at warp speed. For just about everyone, we're hearing that innovation can't happen fast enough. So today we're going to dive into this topic of accelerating innovation. We have three wonderful guests with us here today. All happen to be CoSN board members as well. And we're going to drive this conversation with them and also with the recently released Driving K-12 Innovation Report. This is a must-read for anyone who's trying to drive innovation in the K-12 space. And I'd like to start by having our guests introduce themselves. And I'll start with you, Stacy.
All right. Well, thank you. I'm Dr. Stacy Hawthorne. I am the Chief Academic Officer for Learn 21. We're a nonprofit organization that also serves as the Ohio CoSN, ISTE, and Student Data Privacy Consortium affiliates or chapters in the state of Ohio.
Hi, my name is Chantel Manahan. I'm the Director of Technology at MSD of Steuben County Schools in Angola, Indiana. We're about 2,500 students, a small rural district in the northeast corner of the state. And I forgot, I'm also a doctor now.
Congratulations. Yes. You can't forget that. I was like, wow, can't forget that. So all good. I'm Dr. Chad Stevens. I'm the Chief Strategy and Marketing Officer at Parent Square. So super glad to be here.
Boy, I'm glad I have three doctors here to talk about this today because I can't stack up to that. But thank you all for being with us. And we want to start by talking about the report breaks down innovation into three categories. First, hurdles. Second is accelerators. And third is tech enablers. So let's start with the hurdles first and talk a little bit about what they are and what they mean to innovation.
Sure. And I'll say there are 140 people that serve on this advisory board. So this isn't just the three of us. We're just the ones happen to be here talking about this. And it is a global advisory board. And we meet for several months. And we start with a list of about 25 things that CoSN sees as impacting education and causing barriers to moving forward. From that list of about 25, of those 140 people, they'll add more to it. And then we voted down to see what are those hurdles. And basically, those are barriers that are hurting education right now. What are the biggest obstacles that as an industry, education is facing? And so I'll just say what they are and then turn it over to Chad and Chantel, who could talk a little bit more. But one is attracting and retaining professionals, educators, and IT professionals. So we know there's a huge staffing crisis, and this is impacting education globally. Ensuring cybersecurity and safety online, which is a huge issue across the globe, and then scaling innovation and inertia in education systems. We know good things are happening in individual classrooms and individual districts, but how do you take that innovation and scale it to a district-wide, a statewide level, or even more so?
Absolutely. Thanks, Stacy. I work in a school district, and I definitely see these as hurdles to innovation for me. And let's start with the very first one, like attracting and retaining those educators and those IT professionals. We were fortunate in my small district. We started the school year with only 2 open teaching positions, but I'm hearing the horror stories of larger districts starting without 10 positions filled, without 20 positions filled, without 50 positions filled. And those are just our classroom teachers, but they're the front lines with our students. Imagine if your student started the school year without a dedicated classroom teacher. It's almost unacceptable, but if there are no people for those roles, then what do? You make the best with what you have. You combine classes, class sizes are larger, you get long-term substitute teachers, maybe they're not credentialed. And then, down to my own IT staff, I'm fortunate that I'm not there yet, but I have, my network engineer has been with us for 25 years. And he'd like to retire. And I'm terrified of what that means for me and my district. That he's built our network from the ground up more than once. And we're going through, fortunately, another network rebuild right now. So at least I personally am involved in the process. But I'm not going to get someone with his experience, with his knowledge, and to attract someone who could go to industry and easily triple his salary or her salary to my small school district. It's a hard sell sometimes.
Yeah, and I didn't mention I was a school district CTO myself, and I was in Clear Creek ISD, which is the district that encompasses NASA. And so, like, when I think about this, a couple things, and I can give the corporate perspective too, but I think in both cases it's a lot about mission, and so like it's almost imperative that you kind of sell the mission of your company. And so, like, when I look at our really talented team at Parent Square, a lot of the, I think what we've done a good job is selling the mission of helping family engagement across the United States. We serve 18 million families. And so when you're an engineer on that team, you may not be, we hope that we are helping them talk to customers, but you may not be. But your impact of what you're doing is huge. And so we talk about that a lot. And I think that's one way to retain people. Mm-hmm. I think equally important in the school district is, sharing that vision of what you're accomplishing. So that's the kind of the way I would take that one. So I don't know if you want to jump into some of the other.
Sure.
Jump in some of the other the hurdles. I think the one that jumped out for me, and I'll let the team talk more about maybe the one around cybersecurity, is the one on innovation and scaling it. And I think having worked in both spots, like the thing that I see is, and I believe is that in decision making, like speed really matters. And what I've learned since I've left the school district is it didn't always feel like it in the school district, and I get why with approvals and school boards and things. But in the business world, like a lot of decisions are reversible. And you kind of go into these decisions knowing that as long as there's a way out and a two-way door, you can kind of figure out a way to get out of them. And it's better to just run and do that experiment and figure out if it works or not quickly. And I think if I was back in schools or kind of talking to schools, I would encourage them to set that up more, right? And so we always hear this like fail fast. And I used to always like, that's kind of tough on a school because it puts a lot into the decision-making process. But I think it's a big deal. And like when I look at where we're headed when we talk about accelerators and all the things that are happening around the edtech world, I've rarely met a school that kind of regretted being an early adopter of something that we thought was good, right? Usually they become the leader. And so I think when we get into accelerators, we're going to talk about probably, can't have a podcast without talking about AI.
Right.
And so
not today anyway.
It kind of sets out, it kind of sets you up as, let's just get ahead of it. And if you do that, in my mind, from the corporate side, I see schools that are really excelling, becoming leaders by kind of being brave enough to jump in. So
can I piggyback on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I have been a classroom teacher and technology director. I actually started my career in business, so I'm the career educator with a BBA as well. And I was the first teacher in the state of Ohio to teach with a classroom set of iPod touches. That's how I got to where I'm at today. And everybody always asks me, why did you choose the iPod touch? And that's because I'm old enough to have lived in a world pre-iPad. And so it really was being that early adopter and innovator and trying to see how that happened. And that changed how I taught. It changed how I worked with adults. It changed how I led when I was a director at a school. And I came up with what I call my 3-phase philosophy. And I always try to encourage creativity and leadership so that I can get to this scaling innovation piece. And I always told my teachers, real good teachers are often the ones that are most interested in trying something new and being creative and being an early adopter. But there's always a fear in a standards-based world on how that's going to impact. I know what my results are going to be if I keep doing the same thing over and over again. And so I told them I have a 3-phase process, and do what you need to do in phase 1. As long as you don't harm children, let's do it. Let's try it. And they laughed at me like, that's your goal, don't harm children. I said, as long as we can guarantee that no child is worse off for what we're trying in this innovation, it's worth trying that innovation. Year 2, phase 2, we refine that. And phase 3, it's good enough that we could quote unquote market it. We're education, so most of us don't market a lot of stuff. But giving teachers that leeway and that ramp to say, try the innovation. And as long as we can document that, no kid is going to perform worse as a result of this, that's fine. I don't care. Let's fine tune it. So I think we need to have that type of business innovation mentality a little bit more in the schools to be able to do some of that.
Yep.
I think it's easier when you're a classroom teacher to hop on board that three-phase philosophy, because you feel like you have some autonomy in your classroom.
100%.
And then as you move up into leadership, the stakes are higher, right? You're reaching all students in a grade level, all students in a building, all students in the school district, and the chance for failure sometimes will make you skip over that innovation and stay status quo for too long. So having a three-phase philosophy, or being brave enough, being that visionary leader to go through and work at that, even if it's in a pilot stage, you don't have to full scale everything right away, but being able to scale and understanding the importance of scaling has let me be better at my job.
There's also the very common impact of making a change, and the performance dips immediately, and it takes a while for it to come back. So the bravery has to last a little longer than just immediate.
And that's why change management is so important. Something that we just talked about at our CoSN board meeting, that if you can't manage that change, we don't get a lot of training in that in education or necessarily in IT. But understanding that and working through that change process is the only way to sustain change.
So how can we help educators overcome that, or be braver, or be more willing to take those chances? That's ultimately a question that I think we're going to have to solve somehow.
I think Chantel hit it with the change management piece. Like we spend, I've got a presentation this afternoon that I'm going to be talking about this on, but we spend so much time with teachers. When I was getting my degrees, I learned that delivering the content is not teaching the content. When a student understands the content, then I've taught the content. And so we need to look at professional development from that same lens. So we oftentimes say, here's PD, I sent you to this 2-hour after school class after you worked your 8 hours all day, and here's your PD, and I expect you to implement that. But we don't measure how they go through that change process and how individuals go through that change process. So we need to understand that we have not provided coaching, we have not done the PD until we see that actual change takes place, and we're supporting those teachers through that change process. But that's really the key to getting some of this innovation.
And something that's worked well in my district is just acknowledging the change process, like naming it, naming the feelings, expecting this is hard work, expecting that there'll be that implementation dip, but then we have to be able to look past that over to the other side and framing what we do with the purpose, the why, and then naming those challenges to change, and not discounting those feelings. Just having like that personal dialogue goes a long way.
Yeah, and I when you asked that question, the first thing I thought about is the next column over, the accelerators.
Yeah.
Because one of them
Please
is
do.
Segues right into it.
Please do.
building the human capacity of leaders, right? And so, like, when I think about that, I think, one, I'm really proud of the work that CoSN's doing here of building leaders, building more diverse leaders. It's really awesome. If you kind of dig into what CoSN's done, you can kind of look around. I've been on the CoSN board 5 years, but I've been involved with CoSN since 2007. Just the leaders that are in all the rooms and the sessions, and who's presenting and who's out in the edtech exchange and everywhere. It looks different, and it's awesome. And I'm super proud of that. But I think, how we grow these leaders is a big deal, and growing leaders that are willing to take that risk. Like we heard in the keynote yesterday from Dr. Enfield, basically about that. Like, let's try to do some experiments. And so it's actually a big opportunity. I think there's a lot of turnover. There's a lot of there's a lot of really young school leaders and superintendents that are in the field. It's an opportunity to have those kind of people out there that are willing to take some risk. And then obviously you have to kind of, bring your board along and things like that, which, always are going to exist. So.
Are there any lessons that we can take from industry into education to help with those accelerators?
I think so. I mean, I think, it's a little different, right? Like I talked about speed. We're in the corporate sector, we're in a little different boat as I'm the chief strategy officer. Sometimes you have to take a risk based on something that you see in the marketplace because you see other things happening around you. And, but I would also say that one thing that I think is really interesting is, it's also like a strategy of what you say no to is just as important as what you say yes to. And so I'm heading out to ASU GSV next week. And, when I told, I think my CEO last night, I was like, for every one meeting we have, I have said no to 10. Right. And so what we do, whether it's a partnership, acquisition, or all those things, sometimes the no's are more important than the yeses. Yep. And so I would add that.
It's a great lesson. To me, like building that human capacity, it really starts with our students and what goes on in our classrooms. Are we letting our students grow up in an environment where it's okay to take those safe risks, to try something new, to fail at something, but not stop when you fail, to learn that what real learning is like? Because, we're all doctors on this panel. We all know how to do school, but doing school is not going to cut it in today's world, because you will fail. And then you think it's the end, that F on the report card or that F on the test. Building capacity in students to have real experiences, real failures, and a safe environment where we structure it for them to have the opportunity to go back, iterate, try again, and prove that they can persevere and find success, and that it doesn't have to come that first time. The same for our teachers. A few years back, in Indiana and across the country, teacher evaluation changed dramatically. And there was that real fear of, well, I can't do that. It'll affect my evaluation. Giving teachers that safe space, if they're not going to harm kids,
Good caveat.
to try new things. And even if it is an evaluation day, to recognize the effort that it took to try that something new in front of your supervisor, and to not mark someone down for that, and to give them another chance. I can come in another day to watch you teach something else if this new innovation didn't go the way you planned today. And then that goes to our staff as well, my IT staff. Let's not do something during school hours where we might, shut down everything for work to get done. But around 4:00, if there's a new change we want to implement, let's try it out, as long as we have documentation and can backtrack.
Yeah, and I'll just throw in, so my early career was in business, and when I first started, I graduated with a BBA, I was 20-something years old, and I knew everything there was to know about managing others. Turns out I didn't know a lot about managing others, and I learned a lot of lessons the hard way, but I had a boss who told me, I was pretty hot-headed, and he said to me, he's like, Stacy, people don't do their jobs for one of two reasons. It's either a DK or a DE, and a DK is a deficiency in knowledge. It means they don't have the knowledge, the skills, the tools, whatever it is they need to do their job. And if they're not doing their job the way that you think they need to do it, that DK is on you as their leader. So my job as a leader is to make sure that I get, whether that's training, whether it's change management coaching, whether it's new computers, whether it's new software, whatever that is, my job is to make sure those people have those tools. If they don't do their job after that, then that's a deficiency in execution. And so then that's where I have to start having performance management conversations. And the point of this conversation is, if we're going to build the human capacity of others, are we asking them, do they have the knowledge and skills to be successful in that job? Are we taking those lessons to our teachers and saying, okay, you're not executing on how I think this should be. I want to see some more innovation. I want you to offer more opportunities for learner agency in your class. Maybe you don't have the knowledge to be able to do that, because our teacher prep programs are not training. They're training people for the degrees that Chantel and I got when we got, and Chad did when we got our teaching degrees. and they haven't adapted to that. So us as leaders in industry or in education have to be able to say, how are we providing that knowledge and skills so that those people can do those? And the other last piece I'll just quickly add is it's interesting to me that learner agency and building human capacity of leaders are essentially the same thing, but one's for adults and one's for students. And if you do those things, you'll be able to scale innovation. You'll be able to attract and retrain educators. So there is a lot of
that's a good point.
Meshing.
I've heard the term grace in leadership, and it really fits with what you're describing here. From what I'm hearing, the grace to allow them to make mistakes, the grace to support them and give them the space that's necessary for the development.
And I think those both go back to that changing attitudes towards demonstrating learning by offering those chances. We're doing more hands-on experiences. We're doing more performance-based tasks rather than just a test at the end of the unit or the end of the chapter. Those changes to how we do learning will enable that building capacity in the leaders and the agency in the students, and allow the teachers to step back and give students that agency.
Pretty sure none of us like teaching to the test, so why would somebody want to do it today either? So.
Yes.
Any other thoughts on accelerators before we turn into the tech enablers?
No, I think they nailed it.
Yeah. Okay. Who wants to talk a little bit about the tech enablers?
Chat has a segue.
I don't know if I have a segue, but I think I think the enablers, if we go back and look at them, were really generative AI, which we kind of touched on earlier, analytics and adaptive technologies, and then the digital ecosystem. I mean, I guess I can jump in on AI. I think it's really exciting. I think the early indications are that this could be like kind of a next revolution, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think, and not just an innovation. We talked about that at the board meeting. Like, this isn't, it's not like we can just say like, well, here's the AI toolkit. Like I'm on ChatGPT and like every day there's like a new thing that, you can go down the rabbit hole on. I think what'll be really interesting as I think about AI is, we talked about like, you launch something and the performance goes down, or, the hype cycle and the hype cycle that we talk about, is that going to change because of AI? Like, I think about that a lot, right? So like, I think the thing that AI might do is really accelerate our recovery from failure. So we're going to learn faster. And so I kind of think what we're going to see is like these different changes of the curve and how fast things happen. And so, I mean, there's a lot of other implications. We'll talk about it, and of course, CoSN will do a good job of getting out around privacy and security. But I think just it's an exciting time around AI. I'll jump into the other ones later, but I don't know if you guys had anything to say on AI.
The thing that I'll add on the AI piece, and April 19th is National AI Literacy Day. There's also National Donut Day, but it points to me that this is a skill that requires literacy. And I actually just looked up a quote earlier this morning. It's from Kofi Annan, and it's basically literacy is a bridge to the next level. And there's nothing, and I just kind of messed up the end of that a little bit. So look up his quote, but he literally talks about how literacy is the step out of poverty, the step into a better life, the step into new opportunities. He made this quote in 1997. There's nothing in this quote about technology or AI. And it is so applicable as we start to think about AI literacy. Students need AI literacy. They don't need to just learn how to ask ChatGPT how to do my essay, but they need to learn to understand how to work in this medium. Teachers need to understand that too, because again, they didn't have that in their prep programs either. But it is a literacy skill. And I very much worry about how much we're blocking that from students, because when we block those things, we deny opportunities to the people that would reap the most benefits from it. So we do have to keep students safe. There are ethical and legal reasons that we want to do that. But my philosophy as a tech director was to allow students as much leeway, as much as I could give them, so that they could make those mistakes in my structures, in my systems, and then I could teach them those important lessons about making good decisions going forward. And so I worry that we're so busy locking kids out that we're not seeing the opportunities and what we're costing them outside of that.
And I think that really hits on the literacy piece, that digital citizenship, we call kids digital natives, but digital citizenship really has to be embedded in everything we do, and any digital content. And AI is a huge opportunity to double down on digital citizenship in your school district and approach that with a fresh lens. When we think about digital citizenship in my district, across the state, across the country, I think often we think, that's cyberbullying. That's the end all and the be all. There's so much more to digital citizenship than that, and incorporating generative AI in there. But it's not just about our students either. That digital citizenship, you touched on teachers we're not prepared, haven't had prep in generative AI. Students haven't, but really our parents haven't, our families haven't. And it's an opportunity to bring your community together, to really go through those literacy pieces together as we navigate what are those norms in our classrooms, in our communities, and in K-12 education in our country. So I think we need to seize that And I think we need to pull in that student agency and that leadership capacity in our staff.
Great. One of the fascinating things about AI that's come up and makes me think about how we use it, we so often look at the dangers or the very apparent opportunities to use it. But I think one of those hidden gems around AI is around inclusion and equity. And if not done properly, it can exclude or disenfranchise many students. However, if done properly, it opens the door for so many of those very same students. So being able to adapt how we use it and pull it into the mix in the most productive fashions is going to be key.
And I think, and you said, I always think of productivity, right? Like the one thing that when I was a teacher that, I couldn't create was time, right? Mm-hmm. And so like, that's really the way we're thinking about it at Parent Square is, let's not just throw AI into our tool, but like what actually is going to give back either that PR professional, that teacher, the administrator, the superintendent more time. Mm-hmm. And, because really like where the magic happens is when that teacher's in a class teaching, not doing some of these other things. And we believe that engagement and communication is important, but let's make it faster. Let's make it better. Let's make it more clear. Let's do better translations.
Yeah, more accessible.
Yeah, more accessible. And that's some of our first features are really around things like alt text on websites, making sure that people can read them and they're ADA compliant. That's actually where we started. It was more of an inclusivity thing. So.
And I'll just throw out, so I was mentioning earlier that I taught with a classroom set of iPods. The next year I was tech director, so that's how I got into that role. And so I bought some iPods for different buildings, and we had 7 elementary school buildings, and one of those 7 was in a country club neighborhood. One of those 7 was in a Title I school, and then the other 5 were a little bit more mixed. And I had the hardest time in the country club neighborhood with parents were up in arms about their students having iPods in the classroom because they had them at home and they wanted them to play with them at home and they wanted them to be entertained by them at home. They didn't want them using them at school. So it was taking away some of that allure. But I had so much positive traction from that Title I school because students didn't have access to that, and they were learning how to use it as an education tool, not as a toy, not as a gaming tool, how to read on it. The different things that being able to read a book on a Kindle-like app and being able to get, definitions and all of that was so powerful. And so we've got to make sure that we're using that AI. I can take that example exactly to the AI, that we're providing those opportunities to offer that equity. And again, when we block it, we're just blocking it for kids during the day, and the haves still have it when they get home.
Right.
So
sure. Absolutely true. What other accelerators are there? What are the other?
There are others.
Well, I think I guess the next one on the list under enablers was analytics. Mm-hmm. And I kind of jumped back to the data world a little bit when I think of analytics, because you kind of have to have the data. And what I had written in my notes was really, like one of my favorite quotes was, I think Deming said, without data, you're just another person with an opinion. But I think we've gotten to this world where there's this mindset that because there's a lot of data and because there's AI to crunch the data, we have to have all the data to move forward. Mm-hmm. And so I've really changed my vernacular to be, I don't say data driven as much internally as much as I say data informed. And that means I'm informed by enough data to make an educated decision. We all can kind of read the tea leaves and see like when we need to move, and go back to my initial thing about speed. Like if you're waiting for all the data before you make a decision, you're kind of in trouble. Mm-hmm. And so like I used to always think about like it's insane the amount of data in schools. And always, even back to my time, which was a long time ago, CTO, I used to say, well, we're data rich, but we're information poor. Mm-hmm. And AI allows you to kind of take this data and make it into information. And analytics takes the data and makes it into information where we can make data informed decisions, which are much faster. And I think, again, in business or in schools, if you're slow, you lose. And so, and especially now where schools are competing for kids, right? So neighboring, there's different kinds of schools, charter, private, homeschool. the schools are making fast decisions around marketing and things. Branding are the ones that are getting the students, which is getting the funding. And so it's a really interesting time. So.
And I'll jump back on what you were talking about, some of the AI pieces that you've been able to put in Parent Square, the analytics and adaptive technologies. Like that's huge for individual students with different learning styles, which helps with their learner agencies, being able to see content in multiple formats, being able to see it in different languages, being able to do their assignments in different ways. So that adaptive technologies piece is a huge enabler. And I watch movies on planes. I do not have a hearing impairment, but I always turn on the closed captioning. Like I can understand what's happening. And you actually learn more about the movie. Like it tells you like, oh, this is eerily creepy music coming on and things like that. So providing those technologies for the people that need it, but the benefits that they provide for others is really amazing.
And that's that universal design for learning, like in action. And if we can use AI to better adapt to the needs of everyone, to be better informed, more accessible data, more access to the new technologies, then the better. But I think we also have to be cautious. So we're talking about we're speed with going warp speed at this conference. So we're going at warp speed.
Yeah.
So we're going at warp speed. But so tomorrow morning at 8:00 on the main stage, I'm going to do a session with my good friend, Dr. Molly Stewart, and it's about data justice. So it's called Speed with Caution, interoperability for all. So we have all this data, as you said, data rich, information poor. We're pulling it all in, and we need to move quickly, but we can't define students by one data point or by too little data. So trying to get that full picture of a student in as quick as we can to make an informed decision, but then not defining students by that data and allowing that learner agency and that iteration. That's truly where the magic of learning will happen, and where we'll make an impact. And also back to equity, we gather all that data. We have a responsibility to use it ethically, to train teachers to use it ethically, and to make the best decisions for those students that will grow up.
I'm smiling because it feels like we planned this. The third thing, and this is why when you get 140 something people together, and they boil this down, they seem to all make sense. But the third tech enabler of rich digital ecosystem, the first word that came to mind for me, and Patrick, you'll love this, was interoperability. Because the more rich the ecosystem, the more important interoperability is. And we have quite frankly, the most robust the ecosystem's ever been in edtech. Go out and look, it's crazy, right? But if all those pieces, most of the discussions I have on the floor with other companies are about, think about if this engagement data was with this data or this data, if we're not allowing schools to do that as an edtech community, which Patrick and I are very passionate about, for free, then that could really hurt kids. And, we don't want to do harm, and so I love that you said that, because I think it's a huge point. So you can't go fast in silos. I guess is a way to think about it. So
absolutely, and interoperability is near and dear to my heart, and that's part of the piece. Like interoperability will enable and accelerate all of these changes as long as we can pull it all together securely. And that's that rich digital infrastructure, because it's got that security layer as well, getting back to the cybersecurity piece from the hurdles.
Sadly, our time is just about up. I think we could have this conversation, and we probably will have this conversation many times and in many settings. I want to thank all of you for participating. And I think kind of the summary that I am walking away from this with is there's real strength in fine-tuning your focus and drilling into big problems in incremental ways. And I think that the report is wonderful in terms of breaking this challenge down into three categories. Those things that are barriers and we have to find ways around, those things that can accelerate and can make this better, and then also those things that are enablers. And by being able to focus on each of those with a small number of targets in a highly targeted fashion, really allows, we're big fans of the 4 disciplines of excellence at ClassLink, and I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but it really highlights the importance of picking the most important thing in an area and working on it, how much more you can get done. I think also I'm walking away from this with the understanding that kind of perfection is a barrier to progress, and we can't wait to have everything perfect. We can't wait to have the entire problem solved. That those incremental changes will compound and benefit and improve the overall results over time. So let's not wait. Let's get anything good that we can forward, not hurt kids, but let's get anything we can forward. Be brave enough to take the chances, be graceful enough in our leadership to encourage and support that. And we're all going to be just fine, and we're going to make great strides towards this. So thanks again so much. Thank you for listening, and we hope to see you again next time.
Thank you for listening. ClassLink is proud to be the meeting place to facilitate these conversations. If you have a topic idea, send it to perspectives@classlink.com. To keep hearing our perspectives, be sure to follow us on Apple and Spotify, and subscribe to us on YouTube.